My first ever, God, who thought it'd be this loud next to the freeway? Let's go somewhere else. As I was saying, my first mountain bike ride was probably 25 years ago. I think I was in 7th or 8th grade. I was with my buddy Andy and his dad Jack. Jack was a monster mountain biker, totally into it. I remember he had like a bike workshop in his garage. He had a bike stand. He had a RockShox front fork. And this is like 92, 93, maybe somewhere around there. So maybe one of the first ones. He was a total badass, and he would ride from his house all the way to Rockville and Fairfield. And at the time I was like, oh my God, this guy's crazy. He's amazing. I don't remember much from that day, except for that Jack said, man, you guys are doing good. I take guys out here all the time and all they do is huff and puff and complain. So apparently my first mountain bike ride went really well. Okay, so my second mountain bike ride. Obviously my first mountain bike ride didn't really capture my imagination that much, and maybe 6 years later, around 19 years ago, circa 2000, I went for my second mountain bike ride. I just happened to have a bike. My Uncle Don gave me this yellow Schwinn. Maybe it was a Huffy, but it was an actual mountain bike. It was fully rigid, but it was purpose built. It had knobby tires. It was up to the task. So one random day, I call up my Uncle Dennis, because I've got this bike that I haven't put to use yet. And I said, hey man, you wanna go mountain biking? And he's like, yep, let's do it. Tomorrow morning, 7 a.m. That's a good one right there. They have to be falling off. You don't wanna pick them. You just wanna kind of jostle them. And when they fall off, they're good. Once again, the details from this day are pretty fuzzy. I remember we went to Rockville. My cousin Gino was with us. And I had Pop-Tarts for breakfast because I eventually puked them up on the side of the trail. At this point in my life, I had zero cardiovascular strength. I had no kind of physical fitness to speak of. I probably looked the same as I do now, but internally, just nothing. So, you go for a ride, you push really hard because you're trying to get up a hill, and then your body's like, what is going on? We need to stop this right now. Let's make this guy vomit. So after this ride, I didn't mountain bike again for maybe another 5 years. I just went in fits and spurts. It's like me and girlfriends. Like every 5 years, I'll get a girlfriend. So at the beginning of this mountain biking thing, I was like, every 5 years, I go for a mountain bike ride. Okay, so let's fast forward to 2007. I've graduated college. I've got a journalism degree from Chico State. I'm breathing really hard because this is a tough climb. I'm working at the Napa Valley Register newspaper as the online content coordinator, making sure the website is really nice, getting all the articles up, and actually working on Facebook and Twitter for the first time, as that's a burgeoning brand new thing. So I'm living in Crockett, commuting to Napa. My shift is like 3:30 p.m. to 11:30 p.m. I would get home around midnight, fall asleep by 1 a.m. And many days, my Uncle Dennis would call and say, hey man, you want to go for a mountain bike ride? I'm like, yep. All right, tomorrow, 6 a.m. And that's what we'd do. I'd get like 5 hours of sleep. He'd come by my house, and we'd start from my house, and we'd ride the fire roads. So I do remember my first real mountain bike, Cannondale F4 with a shock in the head tube, and American made. It was brown, it was a hardtail, it was kind of a piece of junk. And me and my Uncle Dennis would get up and go ride the fire roads from Crockett to Martinez. And then this park, Crockett Hills Park, which was pretty new at the time, actually. I think this park was up and running in 2006, and we started riding it in 2007. And this is typically what it was, just pure fire road. So I had absolutely no problem waking up bright and early in the morning if it meant that I was going to get to spend a couple of hours all to myself with Uncle Dennis. That's how much he meant to me. And this trail right here, man, Heart Attack Hill. Ooh, it's a little overgrown with the poison oak. Whoa. Oh God. The first couple times we did this, I was like, how the hell is my Uncle Dennis able to climb this whole thing without walking? I would, a few hundred feet back, I would have to start walking my bike, and it was unfathomable that would actually be able to clean this thing or go fast up it. Oh, the poison oak. Jesus. Oh. Yikes. Ah. So this is gonna be a fun video. I'm gonna spend the rest of this video telling great fun stories about my Uncle Dennis. But first, I have to say that he died yesterday. And that's why I got up really early to go out on this ride and honor him and let you guys know how great he was. So to make this a true Uncle Dennis memorial ride, you gotta get up at the crack of dawn. You gotta get out here early. There's many reasons why you get up early. Best opportunity to see wildlife. It's still cool out in the morning. And the rest of your day is wide open. If you start your ride at 6 a.m. and you're done by 8 a.m., you've got your whole day ahead of you. Dennis was an absolute master of getting something out of every hour of the day. You know, most of us are like, oh, I'm going to a concert at 7 p.m. Yeah, I'm probably gonna sit around and do nothing until then. No, not Uncle Dennis. He'd be up at 5, have his coffee, read the newspaper, go for a ride, get something done. I don't think Dennis was ever diagnosed with ADD or ADHD or whatever you want to call it. But the man had energy, and he poured that energy into so many things, so many hobbies. He was a carpenter for 40 years. He built 5 houses with his own 2 hands from scratch. There's a few things that friends helped him out on, like pouring concrete and stuff, but as a carpenter, he kind of knew what he was doing, and I'm sure by that 5th house, he really had a handle on it. And one of the great joys of my life was getting to help my Uncle Dennis work on his final house, the one he lived in. That house was a massive project, and he would just chip away, 5 or 6 years, a little bit at a time. And I remember at the time, I just hate asking about it. Like, hey, what do you think? Like, because you just know that's the only topic of conversation that people would bring up. Hey, when are you gonna be done with that house? When are you gonna be done with that house? But we were also curious, you know? I helped out with a lot of random things around the house, and he'd pay me, you know, a good honest wage for my work. And it was just getting to spend time with him. It was just the best. I remember he's like, what are you gonna do with all the money that I've been paying you? And I'm like, oh, I'm gonna buy a computer. And he's like, oh. He wasn't really into the whole technology thing. Eventually he did come around with the phone and texting, but back in that day, you know, around 2001 or so, he used to like to call himself Dennis the Dinosaur. So forgive me, but I'm probably gonna butcher this story. But I was asking Dennis recently who got him into mountain biking, and he said it was his buddy Steve DeRay. And him and DeRay played high school sports together. They were on the swim team together. I believe they still have like a 4-man relay record down at the Crockett Pool up on the wall. So they were both athletes. You know, looking at my Uncle Dennis, he was a stocky guy, but man, he was a cardio monster. He loved cardio workouts. He was a beast. And I think him being really into swimming as a kid laid the foundation for his cardiovascular monstrosity throughout his entire life. One of my earliest memories at the pool with him, he's like, okay, I'm gonna go underwater, count how long I'm under. It was like 90 seconds. I was like, a 1,000, 2 1,000, 3. It's like he's under there for a minute and a half. It was the greatest feat of breath holding I'd ever seen in my life, and never will see, I'm sure. So DeRay and Dennis were good buddies, but I think there was a little bit of an athletic rivalry there. You know, they both want to beat each other. It's just the fun thing to do, right? So years and years and years later, DeRay is into mountain biking. And I guess Uncle Dennis had a bike. I don't think he was really into mountain biking, but he had this classic 42-pound Schwinn that was just a beast. And DeRay invited him to go ride Mount Tam. So I think it was a little bit of a setup. I'm sure DeRay had a decent bike and he wanted to, I'm gonna take Zamp up and go show him who's boss. And Dennis's nickname's Zamp. And so they start climbing Mount Tam, and Dennis does it. He's not up there. He's not like neck and neck. But I think DeRay keeps looking back and he's like, I can't shake him. He's actually, how the hell is he actually doing it? So somehow that blossomed into a love of mountain biking for Uncle Dennis, and really maybe more of a love for cardio masochism. It's funny because, I love a big climb, but I love a good technical descent. Dennis was never a fan of the techie stuff. He just loved coming out to the Crockett Hills and doing as many climbs as he could handle. I remember him many a time being like, oh yeah, hey Brian, I was out there 3 hours. I did 4 climbs. Like, Jesus, just out there kicking ass. For Dennis, fun was his number one priority over anything. Just having a laugh, having a goof. He always feel like everything's a joke, and it really was. And that's why I just absolutely loved spending time with the guy. You would want to spend as much time as you could because he's just such a blast to hang out with. He was just really magnetic in that way, and we got along really good, and we had a ton of laughs, and so I'd take any opportunity I could to spend time with him. And he loved the outdoors, so all right, I guess I'm gonna get into the outdoors. And I like the outdoors, but I really developed a love of the outdoors through my Uncle Dennis. And getting up early on days like this and getting out there and seeing things, and I think it's like really my love of wildlife spotting came from him and our time together. I remember out here in the Crockett Hills, we were riding deep in the valley, and I was like, oh, I think there's something up there. I think I see something. And we waited, and finally it moved, and it was a bobcat. And he was like, oh man, good spot. He used to carry binoculars with him when he would go on rides. It's something I don't do. I should probably get a pair and put them in there. So I've had the idea for this video for a long time, but I regrettably did not act on it, and now it's too late to pull off what I really wanted to pull off. I was gonna get Dennis on an e-bike, and we were gonna come out here and ride and have him tell some stories. Yeah. So he had been sick for a few years now, and we got a lot of time after his initial diagnosis where it seemed like, oh no, this is gonna go fast. He's a hell of a fighter, tough as nails, and he's stuck around for a long, long time. So it was great. I got to hang out with him so much. And yeah, so he because of the drugs and stuff, he had some times where he felt just awful, and then sometimes he was just back to normal, feeling real good. So he did get out on a couple mountain bike rides after he got sick, but man, getting him out on an e-bike would have been so fun. And I think the best part, because I would have been able to rib him really bad, because there's no doubt in my mind that he would be anti-e-bike. Like, he'd be like, oh, those friggin' things, oh, I hate them. But I can't be 100% sure, because he was the ultimate devil's advocate. He could always see the other side of a story, and it was like illuminating to hear his opinions on things, and to see that he had such an open mind to take other points of view that maybe he didn't quite agree with, and really be able to see him. He was amazing in that way. One of his all-time favorite catchphrases was, oh, I'm just a dumb carpenter, but he was not a dumb carpenter whatsoever. The guy was very, very self-educated and extremely smart. So if I flash back to my years in Crockett, I only lived in Crockett for 3 years before I moved to Vallejo. And my Uncle Dennis really wanted to go to Yosemite for his birthday in October. And I'd never been, he'd never been. So we looked at the old MapQuest, and it was a 4-hour drive. So we did We did a day trip to Yosemite, 4 hours there, 4 hours back, and it was totally worth it. We didn't really know what we were doing. We just started walking around and we looked for some hikes and went for it. The first hike we did was Mirror Lake, and within like 2 seconds we saw a bobcat off to the left of the trail, just sitting there, happy as a clam. And it was like, oh my God, this is amazing. This is Yosemite is something else, huh? Then we're a couple miles into a nice flat hike and we see a mama bear and 2 cubs off to the side of the trail. And it was so cool. We were so lucky. Okay, hold that thought while I try to clean this brutal climb. Yeah, that was a great day in Yosemite. We went all the way up to Nevada Falls. It's pretty good. Saw it, came back down, and all of a sudden, like, thunder and lightning and hail started. The heavens opened up. Luckily we had our bikes at the trailhead, so we were able to hop on our bikes and take the paved road back, get in the car, and call it a victorious day. And then not far after that, the next summer, or maybe the summer after that, we went up to the top of Half Dome. We did the cables all the way up. It was awesome. We're 4 hours into our hike. A couple more hours to go. We are up on the shoulder of Half Dome. We haven't made the cable ascent yet, but we're gonna do it. This battery on this camera is gonna run out, so I wanted to take some video before then. There's Uncle Dennis. Give him the thumbs up.
Don't fall down on the cliff.
Oh yeah. He was probably right around 50 years old. I was 26, and man, that's my inspiration. Be able to do Half Dome at 50. Woo, baby. So Dennis was my mom's brother. There was 6 kids in the Zampa clan. So it made for really awesome Thanksgivings and Christmas Eves and Mother's Days and Father's Days where the whole family, 30 plus, got together. You know, 13 grandkids, all kinds of people. It's just really, really awesome. It was really quite an experience growing up with such a big family because, you know, my immediate family is just me and my brother, my mom and dad. But I had all these cousins and aunts and uncles and grandparents to role model after and to learn and see different ways, how the ways people thought and the way that people do things. It was really invaluable. And it makes me want to have 6 kids. So if there's any single ladies out there ready to get started, hit me up. One time, me and Dennis came on this trail and we're like, yeah, I think it keeps going. Each had at least 20 ticks on us because the grass is so overgrown and ridiculous. It makes my skin crawl to this day thinking about that. But you never know until you try. As some of you may or may not know, I have never had alcohol before in my life. And, you know, when I was a kid, alcohol was never associated with fun. And it's so funny because as far as I know, and I'm sure I'm wrong, my Uncle Dennis rarely drank. Like, he just never drank, and, you know, he'd have something here or there. But for the guy to be the funnest guy of all time, oh, look at all these flies on this cow. Oh. So for him to be the funnest guy of all time, and for as far as I know, didn't drink alcohol that much, it never, alcohol and fun just never went together with me. So it was kind of a blessing. I never had to go through any of that bullshit. Saved thousands of dollars. Just, it's been nice. There are so many puzzle pieces that had to fall into place for me to be able to start this channel, make a living from it, travel the world, be good enough at it to entertain you guys and build an audience. And I really think Uncle Dennis was the linchpin in all of it. He was the biggest piece in all of it. His humor plus the love of the outdoors, it's just everything I try to channel on my channel in every video. Dennis was a huge fan of the channel, huge advocate. If he saw somebody with a mountain bike, he was really good at striking up conversations with people. So he'd work my videos into the conversation for sure. And I feel like there was a story maybe last year where he was in Chicago. I think he went to Wrigley Field, and he saw a guy with a mountain bike in the back of his truck, struck up a conversation. He's like, yeah, that's my nephew, BKXC. And he's like, what? The other guy was like blown away. He was also worried, as many of you might be, that, you know, financially or whatever, it wasn't gonna work out. And, you know, he was always like, what would it take, you know, to go back to school and get a teaching degree or something like that? And kind of planted the seed in my head, you know, that you always gotta be ready for something to fall back on. He even offered to help out like financially. He was always like, oh, if you need any money, just let me know. Just a great guy. You know, I took like 50 grand from him before he died. And so now that he's dead, I don't think I'll have to pay it back. That was a joke. We would joke about anything and everything. Really, nothing was off limits. You know, last month, when his friends would come by and visit, and, you know, his attitude never changed when he was sick. He was always the same Dennis, the same positive attitude. But physically, he had a really tough time getting around. You know, his cancer had spread to his leg and back, all kinds of places, and it's just really tough to watch him get around. But, still the old jokester. So recently, when his friends would come over, he's like, hey, hope you've been working out. Hopefully that arm is strong. And I'll give you a second to think about why he would say that. We'd be carrying his casket at his funeral. Everything's a joke. Sometimes all you can do in the face of the worst is laugh. And God, I've had some laughs with that guy. So mesothelioma is what got him. And he never smoked, but he did work in the construction trades, like I said, for 40 years. So probably some kind of contributing factor, possibly, who knows? We'll never know. And it doesn't really matter. All right, thank you guys so much for listening to the legend that was Uncle Dennis. The man inspired me so much, and hopefully I pass a little bit of that inspiration onto you guys, because I know mountain biking is the best way to get fit, the best way to see the world, best way to make friends, and the best way to get a little adrenaline rush before you have to go to work. Get out on a little Uncle Dennis ride for me. Get out before work. Go take on some trails. You'll have the whole day left ahead of you. It's just a great way to live your life. Thanks for everything, Zamp. I'm sorry you didn't get to see this video.